Lucia lives in the shadows of the city, a woman the world has forgotten. Her calloused hands, worn clothes, and empty gaze bear witness to a life of struggle and abandonment. She never imagined that anything could change. For her, each day was the same as the last, just surviving. But that day, something different happened. A mysterious invitation arrived in her hands, a luxurious wedding, a place where she never should have been. Or should she? Her fate was about to be revealed, and what seemed to be just another ordinary day would soon transform into a moment that would change her life forever. Lucia never knew exactly when she started to feel invisible. Perhaps it was when people on the streets began to avert their gaze as they passed her. Or maybe it was the day she realized that no one cared anymore whether she lived or died. The time she spent on the streets had erased most of her memories, dissolving what was left of hope. But that day, something different happened. Amid her solitary routine, something unexpected arose, an envelope. It wasn't just any envelope. It was elegant, made of thick and refined paper, completely different from the world she was accustomed to. She picked it up carefully, as if she could break it with a sudden move. Inside was an invitation. A wedding. The name on the card, Lucia Martins, was hers, but nothing about that invitation made sense. For a moment, Lucia thought it was a mistake. Me? At the wedding of rich people? Absurd. But at the same time, something about that invitation felt right. As if it were a call, something greater than she could understand. Maybe it was fate giving her a chance, an opportunity she couldn't ignore. She began to walk through the city, the invitation still in her hands, as if she expected someone to stop her and tell her it was all just a joke. But no one did. Lucia's mind was flooded with confused thoughts, and part of her wanted to tear up the invitation, throw it away, and continue her life as if nothing had happened. But another part, the one she had almost forgotten, whispered for her to go ahead. What do I have to lose? She thought. If it's a joke, I'll just leave. But if it's not? That last sentence echoed in her mind, leaving the question hanging in the air. What if it's not? It was the first hook that sparked her curiosity, and, with it, the desire to understand what was happening. It wasn't just an invitation, it was a riddle, and the solution could change everything. Now that Lucia's story is just beginning, don't miss anything that's coming up. Subscribe to the channel and hit the bell to follow all the chapters of this journey filled with mysteries, secrets, and big revelations. And, of course, leave your comment. What do you think will happen? Your opinion is important. So, join us on this adventure. What do I have to lose? She thought. If it's a prank, I'll just leave. But if it's not? That last phrase echoed in her mind, leaving the question hanging in the air. What if it's not? It was the first hook that piqued her curiosity, and with it, the desire to understand what was happening. It wasn't just an invitation. It was an enigma, and solving it could change everything. On the night of the wedding, Lucia decided she would go. She wore her most decent clothes, which were still not appropriate for the event. The contrast between what she wore and what the invitation suggested only increased her discomfort. But she had to go. I need to know. Upon arriving at the hotel, she immediately felt out of place. The venue was grand, and she clearly did not fit into that setting. The entrance was surrounded by luxury vehicles and impeccably dressed people. Lucia was on the fringes of a world that was not her own, and the doorman looked her up and down, his eyes revealing what he thought without needing words. He couldn't believe a woman like her could have any relation to that event. Doorman, disdainfully, "This is not a place for you. Go back to where you came from." But before she could retreat, the invitation in her hands became her only weapon. She extended it to the man, who took it skeptically. When he read the name on the invitation, his expression changed. Suddenly, the look of disdain was replaced by a look of perplexity. Doorman, taken aback, "Mrs. Martins, I apologize. Please come in. Everything is ready for the ceremony." Lucia entered the hotel, feeling the curious glances following her. People watched her, trying to understand who this out-of-place woman was. Each step she took seemed to draw more attention, and she felt the weight of those looks like knives on her skin. Her heart beat fast, and she wished it would all be over soon. But at the same time, something inside her urged her to continue. Inside the hall, the grandeur of the event struck her fully. The place was dazzling, with sparkling lights and impeccable decoration. There was an overwhelming beauty there, something that seemed inaccessible to someone like Lucia. But as much as she felt out of place, she couldn't help but feel that something was about to happen. She didn't know what, but the atmosphere was charged. Everyone around her seemed to know something she didn't. The mystery grew with each passing second. Why am I here? What does this mean? Each scene that unfolded before her seemed part of a larger puzzle, and Lucia knew she was at the center of it, even without understanding how or why. As she watched the wedding unfold, a man appeared beside her. Tall, with a formal appearance and an intense gaze that seemed to study her, he appeared to know her. Lucia tried to avoid him, but something in his gaze made her stop. Man, with a low, enigmatic voice, Lucia Martins, right? She nodded, surprised that he knew her name. Man, I figured you wouldn't know why you're here, but there's much more going on than you can imagine. You have questions, and I might have some answers, but now is not the right time. This wedding, there's something bigger behind it. Lucia was silent. Her emotions were on edge, and confusion was growing inside her. Lucia nervously answers, "What do you know about me?" The man cast a quick glance around, as if checking to see if anyone was paying attention. There was caution in each of his movements, as if the environment was filled with ears ready to capture any detail. Man whispering, "I can't say much now, but you need to be prepared. The truth is about to be revealed, and when it does, your life will never be the same again." His tone was serious, almost ominous, and Lucia felt the weight of his words. It was a warning, an admonition that something momentous was about to happen. Something she couldn't control. The man disappeared as quickly as he appeared, leaving Lucia alone with her thoughts. Now, what was once mere curiosity had turned into an urgent need to uncover the truth. What did he mean by that? What is hidden behind all this pomp? Every detail around her seemed to gain more meaning. The whispered conversations, the exchanged glances among the guests, all indicated that there was a deeply buried secret at the ceremony. Something big was about to be revealed, something Lucia could hardly imagine. But the moment to discover the truth had not yet arrived. The mystery remained, and the tension increased. The audience, like Lucia, was suspended between truth and lies, waiting for a moment of revelation. Who is Lucia really? What does she have to do with all this? Each scene worked to build this expectation, keeping both Lucia and the audience in a constant state of alert. The hooks kept the suspense alive. What does this man really know? What is her connection to this wedding? And what is about to happen? Lucia was at a turning point. The wedding seemed normal to everyone around her, but she knew she was in the midst of something much bigger. The man had told her the truth would come out, but she didn't know when or how. With each passing minute, Lucia felt she was getting closer to discovering the secret. But for now, the mystery remained. Who was Lucia? Why was she at that wedding? And what could change her life forever? The mystery surrounding Lucia deepened with every minute she spent at that luxurious wedding. Her senses were on high alert, and her heart seemed to beat faster than normal. She walked through the hall like an intruder, observing every detail, every face, while the man's words echoed in her mind. There's something much bigger behind this wedding. The Hotel Palace's hall was opulent. Crystal chandeliers shone like diamonds suspended from the ceiling, reflecting the golden light that gave the environment an air of royalty. The tables were decorated with lush floral arrangements, and every detail, from the silver cutlery to the linen towels, exuded wealth and power. It was a world so far removed from Lucia's reality that, for a moment, she felt small, insignificant. But the feeling that something important was about to happen kept her alert. As she observed, Lucia noticed that many of the guests were not really present. Yes, their bodies were there, but their gazes seemed to wander as if they were hiding something. Low conversations and whispers hung in the air, and she felt that many eyes were stealthily following her every move. She tried to dismiss this growing paranoia. This is all in my head, she thought. Why would they be looking at me? But the idea wouldn't leave her mind. I don't belong here, so why am I here? And who exactly wants me here? As she tried to blend in, her eyes stopped on a figure in the distance. An elegant woman in a red dress, with a piercing gaze, was watching her from afar. When the woman realized that Lucia was staring back, she quickly diverted her eyes, but not before Lucia noticed a flicker of recognition in her gaze. Does she know me? Lucia asked herself. From where? And why would she be watching me like that? Curiosity consumed her, but the woman was soon surrounded by other guests, laughing and talking as if nothing had happened. Lucia felt a chill down her spine. This was not normal. There was something about that woman, perhaps about everyone there, that screamed mystery. Something no one was willing to reveal. Every little detail seemed charged with meaning. The conversations, the laughter, the facial expressions, everything was filtered through Lucia's growing paranoia. She knew something was wrong, but had no idea what. The tension within her grew. But at the same time, a strange force propelled her to continue. I need to know what's going on. As time passed, Lucia's emotions mingled with memories that emerged from her past, memories that she had locked away, buried under the dust of the years. Her mind wandered to the days when her life was different, when she still had a family, a home. Who was I before all this? The thought tormented her, causing a sharp pain in her chest. She remembered her childhood, the laughter with her parents, the moments of tranquility that seemed to be from another life. But, like a dark cloud, the present infiltrated those memories, bringing with it the reality of her life on the streets, the loneliness that had become her constant companion. And now, amidst this celebration of wealth and power, she found herself, once again lost, unsure of her place. Lucia, thinking, how did this happen? How did I get to this point? The feelings of loss and displacement were overwhelming. Yet, alongside these emotions, a new question arose, one she couldn't ignore. What exactly are they hiding from me? This emotional hook, the sense that there were secrets deeply buried in her own story, began to pull her towards something much larger than she had ever imagined. She was at a crossroads. Continue her search for answers or abandon everything and return to the life she knew. And the more she thought about it, the more she felt that giving up was no longer an option. Suddenly, the same man who had spoken to Lucia earlier reappeared, this time in a more secluded corner of the hall. He watched her from afar and made a subtle gesture for her to follow him. Lucia hesitated for a moment, but like a puppet moved by invisible strings, her feet began to move towards him. When she finally reached him, the man had a serious, worried, but not hostile look. He studied her for a moment, as if deciding whether or not to trust her. Man calm, but firm, you need to understand that this is not a simple wedding. Nothing here is as it seems. Lucia, cautious, I've already figured out there's more. But what do you know? And why am I here? Who am I to these peoples? The man took a deep breath, as if deciding how much he could reveal at that moment. Man, there are secrets about your origin that have been hidden. You are not just a homeless person, Lucia. You belong to something much greater, something that was taken from you when you were still a child. Lucia, confused, I don't understand. Are you talking about my family? The man glanced around, ensuring no one was listening. Man lowering his voice, yes. Your family, your legacy, was stolen from you. They pushed you away to protect you, but now, the time has come for you to know the truth. And this truth can change everything if you are prepared. Lucia didn't know what to think. The man's words stirred something inside her, something that had been dormant for a long time. My family? A legacy? How is that possible? Her mind tried to process everything, but with each answer that emerged, more questions formed. The man was clearly withholding important information. But why won't he reveal everything? Why does he speak in riddles? As Lucia absorbed this new information, she looked around and noticed that the furtive glances of the other guests seemed to be becoming more frequent. As if more people were aware of her presence and what it meant, she felt suffocated, as if the air in the hall was heavy with unspoken secrets. But even so, she knew she couldn't stop now. She was immersed in a bigger game, and walking away was no longer an option. I need to know the truth. This idea was a new hook, a promise that kept her moving forward, a rope pulling her curiosity and fear into the next phase of discovery. As the wedding ceremony continued, Lucia knew she was getting closer to the truth, but the mysterious man wasn't ready to tell her everything. He had planted a seed, revealing just enough to keep her attentive and thirsty for more answers. He looked deeply into her eyes and, with a solemn tone, said, "Man, what you will discover tonight will forever change the way you see the world. There are people who want your silence, Lucia, but there are others, like me, who want you to know the truth. Soon, you will have to make difficult choices, but be certain of one thing, your life will never be the same." And then, as if he had never existed, he disappeared into the crowd of guests, leaving Lucia alone, trapped in her own thoughts. She felt the weight of an impending decision. Continue or retreat? Discover everything or remain in ignorance? The suspense was at its peak. The audience, like Lucia, now knew that something significant was about to be revealed, but the how and the why were still mysteries. Every detail seemed to carry a hidden clue, and every minute became crucial to the resolution of this enigma. Lucia felt the weight of the truth approaching like a wave about to crash over her. Every cryptic conversation, every furtive glance, every detail of the environment around her contributed to the growing feeling that she was about to discover something that would change everything. But the main question remained, what are they hiding? The ballroom continued pulsing with the energy of the wedding celebration. But for Lucia, the sparkle of the party had lost its relevance. The laughter of the guests, the smiles that seemed genuine, now appeared as masks. She looked at the people with suspicion, feeling that something was being carefully concealed. How much longer until someone tells me the truth? The tension grew inside her. The mysterious man had planted the seed of doubt, leaving her alone to deal with the consequences of his words. But what else did he know? What was he not saying? As she wandered through the hall, her mind worked incessantly, trying to piece together the puzzle. But the pieces were still incomplete. A part of her life was being hidden, and Lucia knew she wouldn't rest until she uncovered what it was. Suddenly, Lucia spotted the woman in the red dress again. The same one who had been watching her so intently earlier. Now, the woman was not laughing or conversing with other guests. She stood alone, near one of the large windows of the hall, staring into the darkness outside. Lucia felt a sudden need to confront her. She knows something, she thought, and I need to find out what. With determined steps, Lucia approached her. When the woman noticed her presence, her eyes sparkled for a moment, but then she composed herself. There was something in that look that made Lucia hesitate, but the desire to know the truth was stronger. Lucia, with a firm voice, "Who are you? Why are you watching me?" The woman smiled, but not in a welcoming way. It was a calculated, controlled smile, as if she had been waiting for this moment. Woman in red, calm, but enigmatic. "I was waiting for you to come talk to me." Lucia frowned, confused. "Waiting for me? Why?" She was tired of vague answers and endless mysteries. "Lucia, what's going on? Who are these people? And why am I here? If you know something, tell me now." The woman sighed and stepped closer to Lucia, her eyes locked on hers. Woman in red, solemn, "You don't know who you are, do you? And that, dear, is the center of all this confusion." The woman's words reverberated in Lucia's mind. "You don't know who you are." Each syllable carried a weight she couldn't immediately process. Who am I? What does she mean by that? The woman in red seemed to read her thoughts and continued, Her voice now lower, more tense. Woman in red, you've been kept in the dark for too long. Perhaps to protect you, perhaps to keep you away. But the fact is that you are entitled to something much greater. Your family, they are not who you thought. And you are not just any woman. Lucia's heart raced. Something was about to be revealed. But the fear of the truth was beginning to dominate her. If I'm not who I think, then who am I? Lucia, tense, almost whispering, Who is my family's? The woman looked at her with a mix of compassion and calculation, as if deciding how much information she could disclose at that moment. Woman in red, your real family belongs to one of the wealthiest and most influential lineages in this country. They control much more than you can imagine. But, for reasons I cannot explain now, you were kept away. They hid you, protected you, but their world has always known of your existence. And now, they need you to know too. The impact of the words fell on Lucia like an avalanche. She didn't know how to respond, how to process all of it. The feeling that her entire life had been a lie was suffocating her. Lucia, with a trembling voice, Why me? Why now? What does this have to do with this wedding? Before the woman could answer, the mysterious man from before appeared again, interrupting their conversation. His look was serious, almost stern, as he approached them both. Man, firmly, enough with the riddles. She already knows enough to understand the gravity of the situation. He looked at Lucia, his expression laden with seriousness. Man, this wedding is just a facade, Lucia. It's not just about a union between two wealthy families. It's about power, control, and you are the key to it. Lucia felt her stomach turn. What did he mean by the key? None of it made sense, but at the same time, it made all the sense in the world. It was as if disjointed pieces of a puzzle were finally coming together, yet there were gaps, and those gaps were dangerous. Lucia, frustrated, I don't understand. You talk about secrets, about power, but no one tells me the truth. Who am I really? The man took a deep breath, realizing there was no longer any way to hide what was coming. He looked around, making sure no one else was paying attention, then spoke. Man, you are the heir to a fortune that has been kept from you. Your family has enemies, people who would do anything to prevent you from claiming what is rightfully yours. They hid you to protect you, but now it's time for you to know the truth. This wedding, everything that's happening here, is an attempt to control what belongs to you. Lucia felt the ground disappear beneath her feet. The woman in red watched silently as the man continued. Man, you need to decide, Lucia. Continue hiding, ignoring who you are, or claim what's yours. But know this. If you choose to fight for your inheritance, your life will never be the same. Lucia looked at the two of them, feeling the weight of the decision fall on her shoulders. Until that moment, she was just a homeless woman living on the streets, invisible to the world. But now, she was faced with a choice that would completely alter the course of her life. A choice that involved not just money and power, but also unknown dangers and enemies. Lucia, hesitant, if I accept, what happens to me? The man and the woman exchanged a look as if sharing a silent secret. Woman in red, if you accept, your life will be transformed. But you need to be prepared. There are people who will do everything to prevent you from taking your place. Lucia took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. The truth was before her, and now it was up to her to decide what to do with it. The emotional climax was at its peak, with Lucia at a decisive turning point. The suspense remained in the air, leaving the audience, like Lucia, eager to find out what she would decide. Will she accept her destiny, or will she return to the life she knows? Lucia stood in the middle of the hall, with the weight of the truth on her shoulders. Everything she knew about her life had changed in a matter of minutes. Now, the question was no longer, who am I? But rather, what will I do with this truth? The man and the woman in red stood by her side, waiting for her decision with serious and silent looks. The heiress to a great fortune, a woman who had lived on the streets, invisible, without hope, now found herself at the center of a struggle for power, money, and influence. What once seemed impossible now was her reality. Lucia looked around the hall one last time, seeing people chatting and laughing as if there were no dark secrets hidden beneath the glitter of the party. Each face was a reminder of the world to which she did not belong, or at least thought she did not belong. Now, there was something more. She was connected to these people in a way she could never have imagined. As she slowly walked towards the exit, Lucia felt a storm of emotions inside her. How can I, someone who lost everything, be part of this world? She thought about her life on the streets, the years of abandonment, the pain of being ignored. The contrast was stark, from indigent to the heir of an unimaginable fortune. But at the same time, a somber sensation approached along with this revelation. That fortune was not just money. It brought with it enemies, responsibilities, and risks. She knew that accepting what was rightfully hers would not be easy, and perhaps it might cost much more than she was willing to pay. Lucia's heart raced. It was almost as if a new person was being born within her, a version of herself she did not recognize. Who am I now? She wondered. The Lucia who lived on the streets, who depended on the kindness of strangers, was disappearing. In her place, a new woman was emerging. An heiress, someone with a significant destiny, but with difficult choices ahead. As Lucia approached the exit door, the mysterious man intercepted her again. This time he seemed more determined, as if he knew this was the decisive moment. Man firm, yet calm, you've heard the truth, Lucia. Now it's your turn to choose. No one can force you to accept this destiny. But once you step forward, there's no turning back. Lucia faced him, feeling the intensity of his words. The woman in red approached, still with her enigmatic smile. Woman in red, gentle, yet incisive. Lucia, the world you've known until now has been one of pain, struggle, and loneliness. But this new life before you, it brings power, control, and wealth. The question is, are you willing to claim what is rightfully yours? The silence that followed was loaded with meaning. Lucia stood at a crossroads, returned to the streets, to the life of anonymity she knew so well, or step into this new world full of promises and dangers. She looked at the two of them, and for a moment, all the memories of her life on the street surfaced. The cold nights, the hunger, the disdain from people, all formed a barrier around her. But there was also a strength within her, something she didn't know she possessed until that moment. Perhaps this was the opportunity to change her story, to finally have a life worth living. But the price, would it be too high? Lucia, looking deeply into the eyes of the man and woman, I don't know if I'm ready for this. What if this is just another trap? You talk about secrets and power, but why am I only finding out about this now? Man resolute, because now the balance of power has shifted. You are the missing piece. Without you, everything they plan falls apart. But you're right to hesitate. It's not an easy choice. It's a choice that will define your life from here on. Lucia's heart raced with each word. She knew he was right. There were no easy answers. All that was left was to decide. Lucia left the hall and went to the balcony, where the cool night air enveloped her. Outside, the city lights shone in the distance, a reminder of her old life. The streets she knew so well now seemed so distant. And the life she led felt like a blurred memory, as if it belonged to someone else. Lucia, thinking to herself, the heiress to a fortune. Part of me wants this, but what about the price? What am I sacrificing by accepting this destiny? Lucia reflected on the emotional cost of embracing this new reality. The fortune and power came with a burden. She knew that by accepting this legacy, she would be entering a dangerous world, where people played in the shadows, schemed, and manipulated. It was a game she did not know, but now would have to learn quickly if she decided to move forward. The man's words echoed in her mind. Once you step forward, there's no turning back. Lucia pondered what this meant. She would no longer have the simplicity of her previous life. Even if that simplicity was filled with pain and scarcity, it was something she knew. This new world, with its promises and threats, was a complete unknown. As Lucia reflected on her decision, She looked to the horizon, as if seeking an answer in the starry sky. The narrative, at this point, turns directly to the audience, inviting them to join in the same reflection as Lucia. And you? What would you do if you were in Lucia's place? Would you accept the truth, knowing it would change your life forever? Or would you return to what you know, even if it means giving up everything that is rightfully yours? Finally, after what seemed like hours of introspection, Lucia returned to the hall. The decision was clear in her eyes. The man and the woman in red watched her from a distance, waiting for her verdict. She took a deep breath, feeling the weight of responsibility on her shoulders. The decision she was about to make would not only change her life, but also challenge everything she knew. But Lucia, now, knew what she had to do. Lucia, looking into the eyes of the man and woman, I accept, but I do it my way. The answer came with calm and determination. There was no more fear in her voice, only the certainty that regardless of the obstacles, Lucia was ready to face her new destiny. Lucia has discovered who she really is, but this is just the beginning of a new journey. What comes next? Only time will tell. But one thing is certain. She is no longer the same woman who walked into this hall. Just like in life, the choices we make define who we are. And you? Are you ready to face the truth, no matter what it brings? Lucia's life, previously marked by abandonment and misery, was actually part of a larger plan involving secrets hidden for years. With a clear mind, Lucia accepted her legacy but promised herself she would do so on her own terms, facing the dangers that this choice would bring. Now, as the heir to a vast fortune, Lucia must navigate a world she doesn't know, where trust is a rare luxury and power can be both a gift and a trap. Her life has changed completely, and this transformation marks the beginning of a new phase, where she will have to deal with betrayals, power plays, and decisions that will test her morals and courage. Part 2 of the story will dive deep into the consequences of her choice, with Lucia discovering that behind her new fortune lie enemies ready to destroy her. She will need to choose her allies wisely while facing challenges that test her resilience and determination. If you want to know how this story continues, if you're curious to discover Lucia's next steps in this world full of secrets and betrayals, leave your comment below. We want to know, do you want part 2? Comment and tell us if you're ready to continue with Lucia in this new phase. Your opinion is very important. Lucia's journey is far from over, and the most important revelations are still to come. To not miss any details of this suspenseful and mysterious story, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon. This way, you'll be the first to know when the next chapter goes live. And don't forget to leave your comment. We want to know what you think will happen next.